Have you ever noticed that you spend a lot of time on thinking what to say? If so, then you translate something in your mind first, and only after that you start talking. I've recently browsed the internet, watched several videos on YouTube, and I've noticed that plenty of native speakers give some advices, some tips how to start thinking in English. This is very funny because let me ask you guys, and this is the question for native teachers on YouTube. Do you still remember how you started thinking in English when you were 2-3 years old kids? Of course you don't. You don't remember that. It's impossible. Then why do you share your advices about it? Because when it comes to teaching English, almost all natives look down on non-native teachers, and their only motive is we were born in the US, in the UK, Australia, or any English-speaking country. So for you, it automatically means that you know more than us, because you were born with it, but we learned it from the books. Yes, you are freaking right. We learned it and we have spent on it years. And there are plenty of non-native English teachers who have been to English-speaking countries and learned authentic language. Anyways, if we are worse than you in teaching English only because we learned it and we weren't born with it, then it means that you cannot tell someone how to start thinking in English because you learned about it from books, but we experienced it. So, stop doing what you're doing, please. Because you don't know how any person can ever stop translating in his or her head. You don't know how to be flexible. You don't know what to do when your strategy fails. I don't say that native teachers have no clues at all. Yes, they know, but if they face the failure, they won't help you. And it's like when you know two responses to how are you, and these are I'm fine or I'm good, and you get confused when someone says enjoying life and nothing else, because you have never heard that answer. So the same thing happens to a native teacher. That person doesn't know how to reach that point. I mean, starting thinking in English. Even if the eye contact is maintained and facial expressions are serious and the voice doesn't tremble when they give you some tips, it means nothing until a person experiences it. I mean, when he starts thinking in another language. Because thinking in another language is much more serious matter than learning grammar or vocabulary. When it comes to grammar, you can learn some relevant rules, do some exercises, watch videos and listen to audios, analyze how speakers use the grammar. Voila, that's it. Now you know how to use the grammar. But if someone's goal is thinking in English, then advices like 15-20 minutes a day will improve your level, or learn this advanced vocabulary to sound like a native, BS. Those videos usually are BS because I watched some of those videos and they actually give you some vocabulary that you don't even need. I don't say all those words are useless, but 95% of them are. And natives don't use them in their daily conversations at all. If you don't believe me, you may watch 10 videos, then you can go to Reddit or read some posts or listen to podcasts of natives, and I bet you aren't gonna see or hear any of those words that native YouTube teachers give you. Briefly, my first advice is if you want to start thinking in English, you shouldn't follow any native YouTube teacher's tips, okay? And I actually want you to treat me in the same way. Don't believe everything that I say and follow my strategies blindly. Analyze them, discuss them with your friends, teachers, etc., etc. Then try them And if you notice any development, then why not? It means it works, isn't it? Now, I would like to talk about my philosophy of learning English or any language. So, we know that there are 4 skills, and these are speaking, listening, reading, and writing, yeah? But don't forget that reading and listening are passive skills. On the contrary, speaking and writing are active skills. So the philosophy behind thinking in English is pretty simple. I really believe that the best language learners are kids. The way how they learn their mother tongue without the interference of any instructor is quite impressive. They embody the natural way of learning a language. Therefore, I think we can learn something effective from them. Now, let's figure out how a kid learns his or her mother tongue. First of all, a kid receives information during some period by watching and listening. Let's call it observation period. Then starts producing the language to describe the same emotions and situations that witnessed during observation period. Those kids, by the way, express themselves using exactly the same vocabulary that people around them use to describe the same emotions and situations. Briefly, their brains are like brand new sponges that absorb every piece of information, and my advice here is be like a baby. It may sound ridiculous to you, and you may think, what the hell are you talking about, man? You should start babysitting instead of teaching. Okay, but let me explain it. Start with the observation period. Your first move should be picking up a topic. Then look for some relevant podcasts or English songs on YouTube and try to analyze the structure and vocabulary they use. At the beginning, you can just repeat after them. Then you might start changing their sentences by using, for example, pronouns instead of names and vice versa. Or you can use synonyms, idioms, and phrasal verbs. For example, imagine that the speaker says, "The car sped past me very fast." So you can change it to, "The car sped past me in a blink of an eye." So instead of saying fast here, I used the idiom "in a blink of an eye." This is actually a great exercise for your mind to predispose it to start thinking in English. But you need to be corrected when you have grammar errors in your speech or taught new vocabulary when you need some new words. And unlike a baby, you aren't supported by any family member in your journey. So you need to either download a list of words relevant to the topic of the day or the week that you chose, or purchase any dictionary. I actually suggest you to a combination of those two, because by learning a new vocabulary from a prepared list, you save a lot of time. And after that, you may check pronunciation, definition, and how to use them in sentences using an online dictionary. And this method is money saving, because you won't buy any dictionary. As you may know or may not know, dictionaries are actually expensive, so you can just Google something like space vocabulary, then find a list of words, copy or download them, if there is such an opportunity, of course. Then just start analyzing them using a dictionary. Look at the examples to understand how you can use them in sentences, or how many meanings does the word have. Some dictionaries even include synonyms and antonyms. So my suggestion is get rid of all translation tools, start using a dictionary instead. And next time when you see or hear a word, for example, iron, you won't translate it in your mind, but you will remember definitions of it. It's a chemical element that is used in making steel. It's a tool that is used to make clothes flat and smooth, and so on. Long story short, using dictionaries is your first step in the world where translation doesn't exist. But of course, we need a tool to connect all those words to one another. And the name of that tool is grammar. As I've already mentioned, we don't use any books to learn our mother tongue as babies. It is the result of limitless exposure to that language during the day. Although being surrounded by the target language is the most effective strategy to develop skills such as speaking and listening, and it is the straight direction to thinking in English, it's not actually a time-saving strategy when it comes to the grammar and the structure of a sentence. Sorry, but it is the truth. Of course, you may try learn the grammar through watching videos, movies, and listening to podcasts, and you will spend some time between 12 to 18 months, and then you will start speaking incorrectly. Because unlike a baby who is monitored by native parents that help to build his or her speech, you lack that opportunity. But we don't want to lose so much time as babies do we? So in order to fill this gap, we may need some tools, and these tools are books. I myself used only 2 books to learn the grammar, and now I use them to teach my students. These are The Blue Book of Grammar and Punctuation by Jane Strauss and grammar books by Raymond Murphy like Basic Grammar in Use, English Grammar in Use, Essential Grammar in Use, and so on. These are great books that will boost your grammar knowledge, and I say it based on my experience. That's why I recommend you to start using them. Now, when we understand that we are in a little different situation than a kid and we need some supplementary tools, we can continue discussing the observation period. I've already told you about watching videos and repeating after the speaker, which is an absolutely tremendous method. But I also want you to know that during observation period, you should receive information. And that period should not last years. Just pick up any topic, read about it, listen to something about it, analyze the definitions of the words and structures used by speakers or authors using a dictionary and grammar books. Then try to produce whatever you learned through speaking or writing. Basically, this is how your plan should look like. So, you are picking up a topic, for example, traveling. Then you watch my video about it. I'm joking. You can watch something else, of course, but there's my video though. So, you watch a video, read several articles, and you should do it until you feel that you are ready. You learned enough information to start producing the language. It usually takes 1 or 2 hours, but if you feel that you need more, just take your time and enjoy the process. Why not? But if you want to deep dive into a topic that you chose, then it might take a week or more. When you are just starting, it would be impossible for you to notice structures that speakers or authors use. At this period, the best activity that you can do while practicing your passive skills is writing down new words that you hear or read. After learning some grammar, you may start noticing those structures. And as soon as you start noticing them, begin analyzing how natives use those structures in their real speech. And now about the most interesting part. After getting sufficient amount of information about the topic you chose, carefully analyzing the structure and looking up the meaning of the words, you, my friend, are ready to produce your own thoughts. But I bet you think, how can I do it? There are plenty of ways, even if there is nobody to talk to. I definitely know that at the beginning you will be shy to start talking to people in English. It's alright, you know. I also was unconfident about my English, so I suggest you to start a diary. Write there your own thoughts. And after writing it, check it for grammar errors. Don't try to do an ideal analysis. Check it based on the grammar topics you learned. And when you reach the end of the diary, just look at the first story you wrote. you will immediately feel the difference. And if you feel it, it means you made a great progress. The oral alternative of a diary to improve your speaking is a voice recorder. So basically, you go through the same process, but the only difference is you speak instead of writing. After recording yourself, listen to it. Try to check the grammar and vocabulary you used. And if there are some mistakes or you feel that something is not right, then write them down, analyze your notes, and correct yourself if it's needed. And try not to make those mistakes again next time. Also, don't delete those audios because I want you to understand the progress that you make over time. You can also look for groups or internet communities where people from different countries all over the world try to find someone who practices English. Also, you can try Reddit or Quora and other platforms where people share their thoughts. Just join them, look for the topic that interests you, and write your thoughts even if you make mistakes. It's alright. As an ESL instructor, I notice hundreds of mistakes while reading those posts every day. And everyone is tolerant towards non-natives, so it's okay to make mistakes. Briefly, producing the language through speaking and writing exercises is absolutely important. You should spend on it much more time than on your passive skills, because your passive skills will develop the speed of your understanding and you won't spend any time on translating in your mind to understand anyone. But still, you won't be able to express yourself without translating. However, I've never seen anyone who can easily express his or her thoughts in English, avoiding translation, but when it comes to listening and reading, still struggles to understand. My implication is that the highest point that you want to reach is expressing yourself in English without translating it in your mind. Since you reach that level, you will never translate anymore when you read, listen, speak and write. And if you need a word, you will look it up in a dictionary. You won't need any translation because it will turn into a long forgotten habit. That's all, guys. In this video, I shared some of my methods that I used to start thinking in English. Thank you for watching this video. It means a lot to me. Please share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel and like this video before checking others. And of course, I'm going to see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye bye.